Come one, come all from the seven kingdoms and the free cities. This is an Evolved Review, and we are back. I am your host, James Caleb Kitchens, and this week, none other than the guest of the year for 2022 thus far. I'm talking about superhero homie Q, the ace of professional wrestling. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back, brother. I was a little concerned about my spot as far as guest of the year, but it's good to hear that it's still safely secured.
Well, just to let you know, guest of the year for this show is purely based on how many appearances you had on it throughout the year. So it's purely a quantity and not quality type thing.
Would you say it's like 50-50 maybe, Like-
No. It's 100% just a very clear, like, how many times did you actually come on the show? So
Oh,
it's
okay.
just it's there to encourage people to say yes when I ask them.
I mean, it's a very useful tactic. It's working.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, because here we are.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're the only person to review 2 episodes of House of the Dragon so far.
Yeah, that's got to mean something, right? I mean, surely that won't happen again with anyone else, will it?
Actually, I was just about to say that everyone should really, if you haven't caught up on these, check out the episode last week when I had Lauren on from Coffee and Lore. She did an amazing job. Probably going to have her back on before the season ends. And episode 2, I actually had Stan on, and Stan did such an incredible episode as well. So probably going to try to have him back by the end of the season as well. So yes, that's already in the works.
All right. Well, now that my hopes have been dashed against the rocks, I guess we can continue.
Well, in true George R.R. Martin fashion, we're just destroying everyone's hopes and dreams here. And actually, I do have an announcement. Is next week, the homie Oz is going to join us. He has been a guest on your show, on the illustrious and legendary Superhero Homies, and he will be making his debut appearance here on an Evolved Review. That's a mouthful. Next week to review episode 5.
Yeah, and I am really looking forward to hearing that. I mean, I'm actually not just the guest of the year / your best guest, but I am also an avid listener, and I've been thoroughly enjoying the product thus far.
Well, I definitely appreciate that. I was actually listening to you guys' latest episode earlier today, where you guys covered all the big news from D23. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah, and there were a lot of cool things that happened there at D23. We mostly just talked about the superhero related content, and including like the cool trailers that we got from D23 as well. A lot of cool stuff happened there.
I gotta ask, and if you reveal this in the episode, feel free to tell me to just go listen to the episode. But didn't Kevin Feige say at Comic-Con that at D23 they were going to fill in all the blanks on the Phase 6 timeline, but like they didn't?
We didn't talk about that, but you are correct. He did say that. And yeah, I think I also heard from somewhere else that around D23 we were supposed to get the rest of Phase 6. But you know what? I'm not gonna hold Kevin Feige's feet to the fire for not revealing that information. That is so far down the line. If he wants to take some time to really, think about it or reconsider some things, that's cool with me.
Yeah, because I mean, to me, that says that they're taking feedback and looking at things, and that's clearly what we would want them to do to a certain extent.
Right. They're trying to figure out how feasible is it to get Wolverine and everything, and it's a logistical nightmare.
They acquired Fox purely for Wolverine. They didn't want anything else. That being said, man, speaking of acquisitions, hopefully this is not our only season of House of the Dragon, since everything over at Warner Brothers Discovery seems to get canceled. But they did say that already that they're going to renew it for another season. So I guess we have to take them at their word at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it'd be foolish if they didn't renew House of the Dragon, because I mean, I'm sure you probably know better than I do, but then that first episode gets somewhere around 10 million views.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really big number for them. It was bigger than any, I believe, of the season debuts of the previous episodes. I don't think it was the record for Game of Thrones, but for a season premiere, it was the record, I believe.
Yeah, and I think that says a lot. I mean, and not to go back to episode one, but just the fact that many people tuned in to see episode one, you got to wonder. Like, I'm sure that maybe half the people tuned in because they're really excited about it. Maybe half of the people tuned in to see if it would be a dumpster fire.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I was one of those people, as we discussed.
Yeah.
That's just how it is, man. Like I was one of those people that was like, I'm gonna give this thing 3 episodes, and then here we are, saying they were gonna review it. For those on the audio platforms, they get a little bonus. If you listen to the latest Rough Cut episode that I put out, on the Rough Cut, I talked about I don't know if I would be doing these reviews if Rings of Power had come out first, but House of the Dragon came out first, and it impressed me so much that I was like, I'm gonna review every episode. And unfortunately, I do not want to dedicate myself to reviewing both shows every single week, and then also, reviewing the A&E biographies, which we have another episode of that coming out. So it
Yeah,
would be a
you
lot.
got a busy slate.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I took a break, and then we just came back and just started putting out content like crazy. So
I mean, I love it. It gives me a lot to listen to.
that's true. That's true. That is one of the benefits. So let's dig into this episode, man. Um, this week, I think, is the first episode of House of the Dragon where the pretty much the entire episode is kind of contained to one arc.
Yeah, you are correct. There's not really any type of B plot for this week's episode. It's kind of streamlined in that manner. And even in terms of House of the Dragon or even Game of Thrones, we don't do a lot of jet packing or a lot of traveling. We kind of just stay in one central location.
Yep. Since you brought that up, the episode actually begins here with Rhaenyra holding court, and I don't think that they necessarily said this in the episode. If they did, they at least didn't focus on it heavily. But the castle that she's holding court in is Storm's End, which is the ancestral seat of House Baratheon. And they actually, I believe this is our first time ever actually seeing Storm's End in the show.
Oh, yeah, because that would make sense as to why that location, like, or at least that specific castle, didn't seem entirely familiar. I think I was too taken aback by the events happening within said castle.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like this scene to kind of frame it because, she's like basically going on a courting tour. And the fact that this is in Storm's End means that all of these guys in this line, all these other lords in Westeros or whatever, they're putting their own time and resources in to travel all the way to Storm's End, just to get, what seems like a 2-minute audience.
Right, yeah. And it seems like the closest thing that realm will ever get to like a reality TV show. Real Housewives of Westeros. I think that's a banger, actually.
Yeah, I mean, based on this episode, it probably would be.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's interesting too about this scene, even though it's a relatively short scene, I think it accomplishes a good bit in a short amount of time. And I also want to point out that literally the only thing uh, that references this, we talked about like how Fire and Blood, the book, is not a 100% retelling. It's like the historical. This is what was written, not what
Right.
actually happened. And
Right.
so, ironically, there's a single line about all of this, right? And the line in the book is when Rhaenyra visited the Trident in 112 AC, the sons of Lord Bracken and Lord Blackwood fought a duel over her. That's literally the entire passage from the book.
So that's where that came from. Okay.
It's exactly where it came from. So Lord Bracken, who is the older douchebag guy,
Hmm.
basically he fights the little Lord Blackwood over her. In the book, the older Lord Bracken wins the duel.
Really?
Yeah, but they flipped it for the show, which is
I
interesting.
I mean, I gotta admit, it did make for a great kind of comedic purpose for me. Um, just because like I remember watching that scene and saying, man, it would be hilarious if like, that the little guy ended up killing the other one. And then like just moments later, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. This was also the first episode where we didn't get a big time jump.
Yeah. Now, maybe you noticed something I didn't, but I almost felt like maybe there was another year time jump.
Well, it can't be a year because I don't think it's a year. I think it's more like 6 months
Okay.
because Allison's second child seems like she's still very, very young, like pretty
Hmm.
close to newborn.
Yeah, that is possible. I thought I remember hearing some dialogue about Damon saying it had been, or no, not Damon. I could have sworn I heard someone remarked something along the lines of it's now been 4 years since blah blah blah. I was like, 4 years? Last year was 3. But it was just a single line, and I very well could have misheard it. Yeah, either way, even if there was a time jump, I don't think it was anything that significant, like you pointed out.
Right. And since we're on the time jump, uh, this is this is probably the best time to mention that episode 5 is going to be Rhaenyra's actress's final episode on the show, and if there's anything that's going to derail this first season, I fear that that's it.
Really?
Yeah,
Uh,
because she'll be replaced by the adult actress in episode 6.
yeah. See, I that I was aware of that this upcoming episode would be her last time on the on the show. Uh, and man, like she's phenomenal. She's really great. Uh, but as it stands for me, I don't think that any one character has enough sway to make or break the show for me.
No, I don't think it does for me either. Though I will say, I mean, Rhaenyra is my favorite character, and
Mhm.
I think that she is the most beloved actress on the show, and probably the most beloved character, other than maybe Damon.
No, I think that she has it over Damon. I
Oh,
think
I
that a
think
lot
she
of
does
people,
too,
yeah. Um,
especially after
Even
this week.
oh yeah, oh yeah. But even with that being said, I think that Damon might be my favorite in the show. Like if I had to have a favorite, it's probably him. And it's for like a litany of different reasons that we'll get into. None of them have to do with his actions, or my agreements with his actions, but more so just the fact that he's just so uh, conniving at times without really having a secure. He has great concepts, maybe, but poor execution. That's what I'm realizing with Damon, and I just kind of really dig that about the character.
I would have to agree there. That's certainly a thing that that is a big concern with Damon, and I don't know that we're really. I don't know that we're specifically that we're supposed to, be kind of head over heels in love with him as a character. It's kind of
Mhm.
like it. We like him because he is a driver of action on the show, and it doesn't hurt that he has the coolest fucking dragon in the world.
Absolutely.
And I mean everything about Caraxes is cool. He looks cool. He has the coolest name for a dragon. I
Right.
mean, he has the Dark Sister, which is an amazing name for a sword, and it looks cool. And just
Right.
he's got the coolest armor we've ever seen in Westeros.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things to like about him, but I don't think anybody would really want to have him for a brother.
Oh
You
yeah.
know.
No. No.
I got to touch on this. So, you know, as Rhaenyra's flying in, we hear the dragon and we see it's Caraxes, and this is where this is Daemon's first time returning to King's Landing since he, Darth Mauled the crab feeder
Right.
in episode 3. Uh, and immediately, like his demeanor has changed entirely. Now, when you were watching this, did you buy this at all, or do you think he's definitely playing a different game here?
Oh, I didn't buy it for a second. Uh, and yeah. So I guess the reason I didn't buy it is because the show. like besides the fact that there was a time jump since Viserys and Daemon had seen each other, we had no real reason to think that either of these men had changed that much, specifically Daemon, because we had seen a lot less of him throughout the midst of the time jump. And the last time we saw him, he was still lashing out, for reasons that most people wouldn't lash out, and he was still acting very insecure the last time we saw him, before the big battle with the crab feeder. And so, like, seeing him return here, I knew that he was playing the game. I just couldn't tell what it was at first.
Well, I think Damon's key weakness as a character, right? His character flaw is, despite all of his, bravado and his actions, he ultimately does desire his brother's approval and the approval of the masses.
Yeah, and I do agree with that. But man, we're gonna get there organically. But after the actions of this episode, do you think that's still the case? Like, or do you think there's something more that he desires more than his brother's approval?
Yeah, I mean the thing is, if those desires overrode everything for him, then he wouldn't be in the predicament that he's in, right? I mean, he'd probably be hand to the king,
Right.
being the king's brother. So the thing is, yeah, he desires that adoration, but he's not going to give up what he wants for it. I hate to make a wrestling reference here, but it's kind of like, Kenny Omega would love it if Jim Cornette thought he was awesome, but he's not going to stop doing the things he does that makes him irredeemable in Jim Cornette's eyes.
Right.
So,
And that is a very deep cut reference, but very apt and very accurate.
yeah, any of our viewers that aren't like super deep into professional wrestling, dirt sheets and podcasts and whatnot, that's going to go completely over your head.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'll even liken it, to some of the stuff that we see Stannis do in the original show. Before Robert dies, we never see Stannis on screen with Robert. So,
Yeah.
but when we hear about how Stannis got to where he's at, like, it's very clear that he lived his entire life in Robert's shadow and really wanted his approval. We hear about him basically almost starving his army to death to hold Dragonstone
Right.
during Robert's rebellion. And that's how Davos got his nickname of the Onion Knight.
Right. Yeah. That man, I almost forgot about Stannis. Whenever I think about him, I think about his kid. Uh. Yeah.
We don't have to go there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna talk about
I
Shireen. That was her name.
Yes, I'm doing a Game of Thrones rewatch, and I just watched that episode like
Oh,
the night
really?
before last, and yeah, I mean that's kind of the moment where it all went to shit for me. Not that there weren't good moments after that, but that was the moment where it was just like we should have seen the writing on the wall here.
Mm. I mean, it
But
was yeah. That was such a shocking moment. I didn't really take time to think about what the aftermath of that was going to be.
yeah, I mean, say what you want about George R. R. Martin, it's like very few authors could pull off, this idea of you have this character who burns I think 8-year old at the stake for no reason, and
Right.
then a few episodes later brings what was probably the fan favorite character at the time back to life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the actions are believable for
Hmm.
this character all the way through. That's tough
Oh,
to pull off, man.
yeah. 100%. Yeah. Agreed.
You got to really lay in the backstory and the character arc and the character drivers, for that to work, and it
Right.
does.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it was brilliantly done on that show's behalf. Like the fact that what season did that happen? It was that season 5.
It was, yeah, because at the very end of season 5 is when
Yeah.
Jon Snow gets killed and Stannis also dies.
That's right. Yeah. And yet to kind of like have things like that happen that deep into the show and have it make sense, and also uh have it be mostly a surprise for like the non-book readers. That's a pretty tough thing to pull off.
I would have to agree.
Yeah.
Uh, so with this episode, we have this whole thing where Damon comes back, and He's supposedly reconciled with his brother, and then we see basically our main cast here. We see Alicent, King Viserys, Daemon, and Rhaenyra at this feast, and Daemon's kind of giving Rhaenyra the cold shoulder here, and at this point in time, we don't really understand why.
Yeah, and I've seen that pickup video.
Yeah.
we, yeah, we all know that routine. Apparently, this shit goes way back. Uh, but yeah, the old cold shoulder technique.
So I have two sort of like really deep things I pulled out of the episode here on my second watch.
Hmm.
So the first is there's actually some really minuscule like foreshadowing here at the very beginning when we see her in Storm's End holding court. They zoom up on her necklace that Damon gives her in the first episode,
Correct. Yep.
and so they're basically like, this is where her desires really are.
Right.
So that was the first thing, and then the second thing I pulled out, and this is a this is a deep cut. Rhaenyra in at the feast, she goes over, and when we first see her, there's a tray of lemon cakes,
Hmm.
and Rhaenyra has eaten the top lemon slice off of like half of them, leaving the rest of the cake there. Now, the reason that the lemon cakes are even remotely important is that those are Sansa's favorite dish. So that's like it's a reference to the original show for one. But I like the symbolism here where it's like they're basically showing that she's trying to pick the best part out, and she's leaving the pieces that are boring or undesirable to her, which I thought was a really cool little moment for them to put in.
Did you help write this episode?
No.
Like that was that was mad impressive. Somehow that was even more of a deep cut and more thought provoking than your Kenny Omega Jim Cornette uh,
It was also
comparison.
much more relevant.
Also much more relevant. Yeah. I did not. I didn't notice that and or think of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's me watching stuff with podcaster brain,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, I can't remember the director's name, but there's a director for this episode that I think really did an amazing job with it, and I think because of that, like this is one of my favorite episodes, even though this is the episode that has the least amount of like dragons in it. It has the least amount of action in it, but I think that from a character point of view, I think it's the best episode, and that's the stuff that I'm really into. Even though I love a good battle and a good dragon melting somebody and etc.
Yeah, no, I agree. She did a great job. I forget her name, but I watched like the after show kind of post show recap that they do at every episode, and she really gave like a pretty resound perspective for why she chose to do certain things the way she did, and it really made a lot of sense. And and you talk about how like this is one of your favorite episodes, despite there being like maybe a lack of action or dragons or whatnot. I mean, that's kind of like the beauty of like the beginning of Game of Thrones is they lure you in with this whole idea of dragons and ice zombies, and then that doesn't come into play for like seasons later. But it's the political intrigue that keeps you sticking around.
Right. Yeah, and I think this is the slowest episode too, but it goes a long way because honestly, if you're gonna have the most powerful family in the history of Westeros suddenly declare a civil war upon itself, there has to be an excellent reason for that to happen.
Yeah.
That's not someone gets pissed off because the rolls are burnt at dinner. You know what I mean? That is years and years of neglect or trauma or whatever else that might be going on, murder and incest in the case of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, very true. But it is also important to point out that burnt dinner rolls is a very a very reasonable explanation to leave dinner.
Yeah, I mean, as we all
Yeah.
know, September is Burnt Dinner Rolls Awareness Month in Westeros. So you know, um, yeah, it's very important to make these kind of things known. So I'm glad we brought it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so after the feast here, and one thing I noted at the feast is like Viserys is kind of done with everyone's shit, man.
Oh, 1,000%. Like you kind of get that feeling in episode 3.
Yeah,
Um
here it's
it-
just he's not even trying to
oh yeah.
play coy about it anymore. He's just like, oh well, you want to go see? He's like, you want to show Prince Damon the tapestries? He don't want to see that shit. Oh, you want to see him? Well, you should go do that then and get the fuck out of my
Right.
face.
Like Viserys, like he really does embody the whole idea that you are your truest self when you're drunk. Because every time this man gets shit faced, that's kind of when like he's his boldest and like his realist, because he normally at least tries to be kind and tries to listen. But man, when that liquor starts flowing, or that wine starts flowing, I should say, he's like, fuck it. I
Yeah,
dig it.
he went in. I really
Yeah.
liked it. I liked that we got a good little scene here where Alice and Rhaenyra are kind of mending the fences a little bit because I think they've both at this point realized that neither of them really got what they wanted.
Right.
Uh,
And yeah, neither of them got what they wanted, and to a degree, you could argue that they're in the same positions, just in different time frames of that position. Like it's almost like Rhaenyra could look at Allison. It's her fate could be what I end up as, and I don't think I want that.
right.
And real in the meantime, Allison, who's I get the idea that all throughout she's been trying so hard to do her duty, whatever that may be. And now her duty is queen, so she's trying her best to uphold her duty, but you can tell that she's not really happy with it.
Right. I mean, she was kind of there when Viserys was at this, point in his life where, he was very powerful and he was going through a tough time and he probably had a lot of like, we actually get to see a lot of these intimate moments with her and everything. But now, I mean, he's older. He's got all this, shit happening on his back. He's missing fingers. He needs all this extra care. He's really, he's drinking all the time. He's not really concerned with her other than to pop out babies for him.
Right.
It's just it's not what she thought she was getting. It's kind of like you should have known, but I mean, it's unless you were going to the library and reading about this stuff, most of which doesn't get written down, because
Right.
most of the people writing the stuff in the library gonna be maesters, and they're all
Right.
men.
Correct. And even then, even if she, did know or think about this all the way through, if you exclude the fact that she's a child,
Right,
and you also have to think about the fact that she didn't have a choice.
right. I mean, she had a choice to an extent, but I mean, once the king says you're gonna marry me, that's it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, what do you do from that perspective? And she was being manipulated by her father just as much as anyone else. So,
Yes, and that really comes to a head here,
yeah.
and we'll definitely get to that in a minute. Before we go there, though, I definitely have to talk about uh, this scene here where Rhaenyra gets back to her room, and she finds the note from Damon and the party clothes, as it were, the
Hmm.
commoner clothes, and we kind of find out, that Damon was kind of putting on a show in front of the king when he was kind of just ignoring her and kind of just giving her the cold shoulder, as we said. And so another little piece of Game of Thrones lore. Uh, the king before Viserys' father was King Magor rather, and he was kind of like the Mad King. He was like a bloody, violent type.
Hmm.
Um, and however, due to him being sort of paranoid as well, he actually had all those passageways that we see them use in the episode here, and that Varys used a lot. It's also where they were hiding in the Battle of Blackwater, where Cersei and Sansa were hiding. That's Magor's Holdfast, is what it's called, and it's a series of all those underground tunnels that connect all of the royal bedrooms.
Yeah, again, I didn't know that. That is a really cool factoid, though.
Yeah, here I am. This is what I do.
Yeah, it's just
I drink and I know things. Um, that being said, you know, they go out. They go out on the King's Landing bar crawl,
right.
which I think a lot of people did not see coming, especially not the way that this ends. Like the way that this ends.
Yeah, yeah. In the words of the legendary Restaros poet, they went from 0 to 100 real quick.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we they go to a play of sorts. They get a little bit of drink on, and then they end up in the pleasure house. And the pleasure house is full of pleasure. What do you know? And then we
Right.
have this scene with Damon just being like, "Yeah, I mean, sex doesn't have to just be pleasurable for the man," which is probably something that is was a well kept secret, especially among royal families back then.
Right.
And I love that this is interspersed with the evening that Allison is having with the king, which looked, I mean,
She was
like
straight up not having a good time, yo.
yeah, you ever see one of those like Game Boys where like somebody dropped it and like 2/3 of the screen like doesn't work and you just got like one bottom corner of the screen? She
Right.
looked like she was playing one of those.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it looked like she was like waiting in the dentist office knowing that she was about to get a root canal. Like
Right.
that that's what she looked like.
And
And
she said something like when they like the king has summoned you and she said something like the hour is late or whatever and I was like, yeah,
right.
that's like the Westeros version of I got a headache.
Right, yeah. And when she said the hour is late, I'm like, that's what the young folk call demon time. So it's time to get to it.
Right. Yeah, I mean that I guess, when the king summons you, the king summons you.
Right. I'd be like, can you feed them some melatonin first and then tell them to get with me in half an hour?
Yeah, right. Milk of the poppy.
Right.
Um, an interesting thing that comes up here through all this, like once again, excellent directing where they're showing two different scenes that directly relate to one another, and
Right.
they show what Rhaenyra is out doing, and they show what Allison is out doing, and it's really like it's interesting because Allison kind of I think felt like she won, even though she wasn't trying to get with the king and become the queen in spite of Rhaenyra. She actually wanted to have her cake and eat it too. She wanted to have Rhaenyra's friendship and basically be her stepmom. Uh,
Yeah.
but she lost that, and she still felt like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be the queen. This is gonna be amazing. But we see how her evening is going, and we see how Rhaenyra's evening is going, and they go back and forth between the two.
Yeah, they do. And like the contrast is even deeper when you consider the fact that Allison, who was straight up not having a good time, she's still doing her best her queenly duties. Meanwhile, you have Rhaenyra, who is out having the time of her life, and it is the opposite of what she should be doing. The
Right.
exact opposite.
And you know, we get this scene with Damon, and they revealed this in like the after the episode stuff,
Hmm.
but they didn't like it wasn't evident inside the episode. So him and Rhaenyra are about to basically get it on in this pleasure house, and suddenly Damon is reluctant. Now it would be easy to assume that he's just like that. This is part of the long game, right? That
I
he's
don't think so.
no, I don't think so either. But I think that it's an assumption that could be made. But
Right.
in the like inside the episode, they said that he actually like just kind of like lost the mood
Hmm. And
when it
we've
was
seen that happen
presented.
to him. We've seen that happen to him before.
Yes,
Like
in the
this
first
is not the
episode.
first time. Yeah. This man has performance issues. Like they make supplements for that now. You
Yeah, I mean
know.
they haven't invented Blue Chew yet in
I was just about
Westeros.
to
Not a
beat me to
sponsor.
it.
So,
Yeah.
but hey, I mean there might be some plant or something that they can chew on, or what is it? What's the seafood? Is it mussels? or oysters.
Oysters. Yeah,
Oysters, yeah.
yeah. Get you some oysters, some ginseng, and and I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah,
He's the
you
king of
can
the
make something.
stepstones. They got to have some oysters down there now, right?
Right.
Unless the crab, the vicious crabs have eaten them all.
Probably those motherfuckers ate everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the crabs in Westeros are not fucking around.
Right.
So, Rhaenyra she's pulling a Little Caesars and she's hot and ready. And then she just kind of gets I don't know what the female equivalent of blue balls is, and she got to go back to the castle thirsty.
Yeah, and she went back to the castle like she had been in a drought. Like
Right.
she was dying of thirst.
And
I guess before we get onto that though, like, do you do you think that it was just impotency that stopped Damon from performing, or do you think that it was like some type of moral consciousness that came upon him that caused him to stop?
I think it's probably I don't think it's a conscious thing because you got to remember incest was like just another thing. It was just another
Hmm.
Tuesday for a Targaryen,
Hmm.
especially during this time. So I don't think it was that. I don't know that he necessarily thought it was wrong. It's possible that he considered, like, she's supposed to be a maiden, and like me publicly deflowering her here is not the way to go.
Right.
Um, it's entirely possible, or it could just be this whole idea of in the moment that he can't pull it off. I mean, that's entirely a thing, and if that is a thing for him, it does explain a lot of these aspects of his character.
Right.
That would just be kind of another kind of facet of his character that may be driving some of these impulses that he has.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be mad reckless too if I couldn't get it up.
Right. I mean, back then, at this point in time, okay, look, you're a rich prince. Your only options for ways to entertain yourself are to fuck or fight.
Right.
And fighting gets you killed.
Yeah.
Like any level of it. Like you could just accidentally get a little cut on the arm, it gets infected, and you just die.
Hey, look at Viserys.
Yeah.
And he wasn't even fighting. He was
Yeah.
literally sitting down.
Yeah. So I mean, if one of those, if the safer of those two, pleasures available to you is not an option, then yeah, I mean, obviously you're gonna just go a little batshit crazy. So, and that's what he's done. So
Yeah.
it's entirely possible that it is purely that, but with Rhaenyra specifically, there might be something more to it.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think that the other shoe has fully dropped yet. But I can't wait to see how that unfolds completely.
Man, I gotta say the look on Sir Kristen Cole's face
Oh yeah.
when, yeah, I mean, when he saw her come back in, and he's just like, princess. And when she took the helmet from him, I was like, no, this is happening right now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like, yeah, the build up is over. We're now getting right to it. And like, I mean, like, as far as rebounds go, that's a pretty good rebound. Some would say that the rebound in this case is better than like the original.
Oh, I would say so.
Yeah.
I mean, for him to be able to, obviously there was a lot of position changes here. Kristen Cole was putting in the work,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
like especially after taking all that armor off. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, if it was me after I took all that armor off, that's like a 30-minute thing. I'm gonna be like, well, we going to bed.
Exactly. I'm like, nobody's in the mood no more. Like,
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
try again some other time.
Like I feel like even after all the armor came off, like I feel like under that armor, he was wearing more clothing than I would wear on like the coldest winter day.
Right. Yeah, and then also like, not to get too far into it because I'm sure the show doesn't go that deeply into it as well, but I'm like, how long has he been celibate? And like the time that it takes to undo all that armor and the times that it takes for him to get his nut, I'm like, the ratio there is not favorable.
Right. Yeah, definitely not. And he is resistant here not because he doesn't want it, because he does, and he
Right.
has from jump, and I think she has too.
Hmm.
But you know, the Kingsguard are supposed to be celibate, so
Right. Yeah.
uh, that's kind of the whole thing here is that the Kingsguard are not supposed to father children,
Yeah. Yeah.
which, you know, if you get pregnant back then, you really couldn't go to the clinic. Although we find out at the end of the
Well,
episode that, you know, while Plan B has not been invented yet, Plan T has.
that's right. Yeah, you don't go to the clinic, but the clinic can come to you if you're the right person.
Right, yeah. If
Yeah.
you got like a maester on staff.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and I mean, surely there's probably gonna be some consequences to come from that as well. Like, I don't think that she can just, that those two can just, get their groove on and have nothing come of it. You
yeah.
know.
So you know, we have an interesting scene here where Otto finds out about it because he has Varys's network of whispers,
Yeah, he's got little birds flying around.
and we learn here that Massaria is now the mistress of whispers in King's Landing. So she's
Right.
got the little birds that spy on everybody, and then she's reporting back probably for a considerable sum of money to Otto Hightower, the Hand of the King.
Yeah. And of course, Otto, who already hates Damon, would have eyes on him at all times.
And he's trying to discredit Rhaenyra as a
Yeah,
legitimate heir. So like this was like the best
correct.
thing ever for him.
Oh yeah. I mean, like the performance that he puts on when he has to when he's forced to tell, the king about it, like I'm sure that was so hard for him to do, but had to be done.
Right. Yeah. So I really love this scene between Otto and Viserys for one, especially where Viserys is like, "No, I need specifics," and Otto's just
Hmm.
like, uh, they were smashing."
Yeah, I would have died if Otto just went quiet and then just like stuck his finger through like his hand is like that's
Or if like he just pauses for a minute and then he just goes into like an incredibly detailed like the whole, you know.
Yes.
I heard he flipped her over on the table and bottles were flying everywhere and he was hitting it from a 47-degree angle.
Yeah, it had never been done, Your Grace.
Oh, yeah, that would have been insane. So that scene with Otto was incredible, and then I love the difference here. Once again, they
Hmm.
juxtapose these two scenes where Alicent confronts Rhaenyra, and the king doesn't even confront Rhaenyra. He doesn't even talk to her. He goes
Right.
straight to Daemon, and it doesn't help that his cause at all. That Daemon literally looks like he just crawled out of a brothel at 10 o'clock in the morning or whenever it was.
Right.
When he comes through the castle gates, looking like complete dog shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he looked like straight ass. And it's like either he was calling his brother's bluff or to a degree, he was so hungover he didn't care like what happened. But I'm like, he was extremely close to just biting the bullet right there.
Yeah, I mean, like they didn't have no Z Biotics back then either. Also not a sponsor. So he had a rough night.
Right.
Uh, and I love the scene with I like the scene with Otto. I mean, with Alicent and Rhaenyra, but I love the scene with Daemon and Viserys much more because Daemon doesn't ever actually deny it. As a matter of fact, Daemon wants Rhaenyra for himself, and so he is playing the long game here. Where even though he didn't deflower her, he
Hmm.
is completely fine with dragging her name through the mud and essentially allowing the king to believe and everybody else to believe that it happened because then it's going to be incredibly hard for them to find her a suitor.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, there really is some hedging his bets. and and like you say, even him playing it up, saying that they did things that technically they didn't do, that all works for his favor. So again, it is extremely reckless in its execution, but like the concept of it is structurally sound.
Right. I mean, and he kind of got his ass beat a little bit for it.
Oh yeah,
So
as he probably should have expected.
agreed. Um, and then this kind of leads to what I would say is probably my favorite scene of the episode, which is where Viserys and Rhaenyra finally do confront each other.
Mm-hmm.
And there is one thing in here that was kind of, I don't know if I'd say it was eye rolling, but I I didn't love the song being etched on the blade on the cat's paw dagger.
Why is that? Why not?
It's to me it was too much of a Tolkien cut. Like it's way too similar to The Ring for me.
Uh,
And we've talked at length. I've discussed this on several podcasts where George R. R. Martin's work is the antithesis of Lord of the Rings, of Middle
right.
Earth. And so for us to have Rings of Power on TV right now, at the same time this is going on, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that I hated it or it made me not like the episode at the moment. It was just like I would have found another way to sort of involve the importance of this dagger
Mm-hmm.
than go that route because it was really to me it was just a little too on the nose.
That is fair. Um, Especially when you consider what that dagger is later on used for, like and the importance of it in the grand scheme. So yeah, I can understand that.
Agreed entirely. Um, that being said, there are a lot of things to love in this scene. As a matter of fact, so here's another little piece of Targaryen lore. The name that Viserys mentions here, he talks about Aenar,
Mm-hmm.
and Aenar is credited to an extent of being the person that kind of all the Targaryens owe their existence to. So, Aenar's daughter, Daenerys, or Daenerys, I don't know how the exact pronunciation. Um, she essentially was like the first person in recorded history to have this like prophetic dream, which is a thing that the Targaryens are known for now. And she dreamed about the doom of Valyria, that Valyria was going to basically implode on itself. So she had a dream about Valyria's destruction, and she talked her father, which is Aenar, into leaving Valyria. And that is why originally they came across the Narrow Sea.
That's why they did it, because of a dream.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
God damn.
And the Valyrian steel dagger actually once belonged to Aenar.
Oh, okay.
That he in which he mentions here in the scene. This is how it comes up here in the scene.
Right.
So it's kind of like it was a string of prophecies where Aegon has the Song of Ice and Fire dream about the long night and about them having to unite Westeros against the darkness from the winter, and then also the prince that was promised, the one that comes up in Game of Thrones,
Mm-hmm.
the whole the dragon has three heads and all of that we see is yet another prophecy, and I believe that was I really should know this, but I think that was Rhaegar Targaryen that had that dream. So
Okay.
the kind of prophetic dreams thing, that may be due to their Valyrian blood or something else. We're not really sure, but more often than not, they have come true.
We should probably visit West Virginia to see how many of those people also can have prophetic dreams, because it might just be incest.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, yeah.
We did learn over the weekend that there is actually a lighthouse in West Virginia, which doesn't have any ocean touching it.
Yeah, I was just about to ask that.
So maybe somebody had a prophetic dream about like global flooding, and maybe there's going to be like some beachfront property there, in the future, and so
See,
they built a lighthouse.
they're ahead of the game. It's about the incest.
It could be, man, but
Yeah.
if that's the case, we could just go to Alabama though.
That's true. It's closer.
So yeah. We just lost our 7 people that are listening to this show from Alabama right now.
They can't work a
So
podcast.
that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Not at least not the ones that are into the incest anyway.
That's right. Yeah.
So
Uh,
this scene, I really liked this because we get this moment that we're not going to get a whole lot of Viserys kind of having this legitimate moment with his daughter. And what comes out of it is that she is going to marry Lord Corliss's son, which I'm like, well, you know, he got a dragon, you got a dragon.
yeah. I mean, so that's not. When I heard him say that, I'm like, so I understand why Rhaenyra is mad, because no one wants to be force wed, but I'm like, that could be worse.
Right, that's true. I mean,
Yeah.
she does agree to marry Laenor Velaryon, so she didn't like. He kind of used the situation to kind of push her into that,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll see if it comes to fruition or not. But Rhaenyra's like, fine, I'll do what I got to do, but you got to do what you need to do.
Right.
And for the first time, possibly ever, Viserys takes her counsel into consideration here.
Yeah. And man, like, so it's not really fair for me to ask you this because, like, you've read the source material and all of that, but like, I did not see this coming. I didn't see Viserys having the balls to do this.
I mean, I didn't see it necessarily either, but like we said, each episode we've seen,
Mm-hmm.
he's more and more fed up with people's shit.
Right.
And this is one of the things that we actually have talked about off mic. Is it's like, all these people in Westeros right now talk about how Viserys is like an ineffective king, so on and so forth. He's literally a world's better king than every single king we get in Game of Thrones.
That is true. Yeah. I mean, but the bar is so low. That's not really fair.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a steep drop off to Tommen, whose only
Right.
qualification to being the best king was that he was not a murdering psychopath.
I was just gonna say, yeah, Tommen just didn't murder people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was a low bar for him.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it is tough, but it's good to see him finally get some balls here. And I mean, Otto is lucky, man. We've never seen a Hand of the King really get fired other than Tyrion. Other than that, you pretty much get killed.
Yeah, I can imagine that because it's like, yeah, if you're the hand of the king and you do something that causes you to no longer be the hand of the king, I can imagine in most cases that would result in you being like beheaded or burninated.
Yeah, I mean, technically, Tyrion actually was never Hand of the King anyway. Tyrion was acting as Hand of the King in Tywin's place. Tywin was really the Hand of the King, and guess what? He got killed.
Yeah. Yeah, crossbow bolt on the shitter. Yeah,
Yeah.
what a way to go. Yeah.
Yeah, Ned Stark got killed. He got killed.
Yeah.
I mean, it was not great.
Yeah, the more I think about it, why would you want to accept being the hand of the king? It's like, man, that risk reward ratio is not good.
Yeah, it seems like it was a much better job when Otto had it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he seemed like he was in a great position. I
Right.
mean, he really was like the second most powerful man in the realm. Whereas like in Game of Thrones era, it's like you are responsible for all the shit the king don't want to do.
Hmm.
It's the phrase they said in the first season. The king shits and the hand wipes.
Right.
You're literally just a fixer for the king, cleaning up all his bullshit all the time.
Right. And the interesting thing about Otto, man, is that like he's one of those characters where he's not like Littlefinger because Littlefinger was just outright slimy and obviously deceptive and manipulative all throughout. And he was all about chaos for chaos sake. Chaos is a ladder, all that stuff. But with Otto, like there's he has his own motives and he wants like his own blood to be on the throne, like obviously, but there are also like things that he says that have dual meanings. Like he could want Damon gone for multiple reasons. He can want Rhaenyra's gone for multiple reasons. Like it doesn't have to be just one thing. And so, like, the advice he gives at times is sound, but you just don't really know what his true motives are. Like whether they're coming from the perspective of this is what's best for the ram or this is what's best for me.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's as you were saying that, I was trying to actually think of, like, was there ever a Hand of the King in Game of Thrones that didn't get brutally murdered? And the answer is no, because well, Davos is technically the hand of Stannis, but Stannis never becomes king.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
if we excuse all the technicalities, right? We go from Ned Stark. So Ned Stark's predecessor, Robert Arryn, murdered. Ned Stark
Hmm.
murdered. Tywin Lannister murdered. Kevin Lannister was the next Hand of the King. He was brutally murdered. He was in the Sept when Cersei blew it up.
Oh yeah, that was awful.
And then Qyburn is the Hand of the Queen, and he
Yeah,
gets brutally killed by the Mountain.
right.
So
Yeah,
literally
no,
everyone.
right. I feel like this should be like, yeah, someone should definitely like take note of that.
Like, no one should have this job.
Right. It's an awful job. Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's around the clock service. The benefit package may look appealing at first, but when you look at the hours and then when you look at the causation for termination and what that termination is, man, it's not that great.
So, that being said, the way that this all works out, it's going to be interesting to see what Otto does, because he's still going to have a lot of his influence, even if he doesn't have the power. He's still the queen's father.
Right.
He's still probably got his network. Still probably has a lot of wealth. So it's going to be interesting to see what role he plays going forward. I highly doubt we're going to see something where Viserys fires him and then that's just it, and he just sails off into the distance.
Yeah, no, I doubt that. I highly doubt that. But man, it's one of those things where it's like I don't know. And Viserys has been placed in so many of these situations. It's hard for me to consider him really a weak king. And what I mean is that he's been placed in so many situations where like his options are all shit. Like there are no good choices. We've seen that happen several times with him, and now with Otto and firing his hand. It's like just letting this man go off to his own devices is probably not good for you. But also, what are you gonna do? You're gonna imprison or kill your hand. Your wife's dad. That also ain't a good look. And so again, like his options are really shit, and there really is no good choice for him to make.
I would have to agree entirely with that. It's going to be interesting to see where it goes, especially with this next episode. We can only assume that there's going to be the largest time jump we've seen
Yeah,
after this episode,
right.
because from the source material, I mean, we're gonna see Aegon, which is Alicent's oldest child. We're gonna see him probably grown into an adult at some point in this series. So there's gonna be some time jumping.
Yeah, that's a huge time jump.
Yeah,
Um,
I would have to
also,
imagine that this is Viserys' last episode too. I would not be shocked to see him die in episode
you
5.
you beat me to it, man. I was just about to mention that, like,
Oh, the hive mind.
yeah, the hive mind is at it again. Yeah, he is not well. As a matter of fact, even in episode 3, I went back and kind of rewound some scenes just to look at his hand. And even though his hands are gloved for most of that episode, I noticed even then he was missing fingers. Uh,
Right.
yeah, and then like they clearly show it to you here in episode 4 that those fingers are gone. Um, and I mean, like there probably is like some type of lore throughout Westeros saying that if you're an unworthy king, then the throne will kill you. In reality, it's probably just tetanus that's killing this
Right.
man.
Right.
But either way, it doesn't bode well.
Yeah, there is a legend about, like, being cursed if the throne cut to you.
Yeah, and I'm like,
So
well, no, no shit. Look at it.
right. Yeah. Yeah, it probably is just tetanus.
Yeah.
And interesting, like with Rhaenyra agreeing to marry Laenor Valerian, you gotta wonder, is she gonna be like, I'm still the princess, I need a Kingsguard? Is she gonna bring Kristen Cole along to be her, permanent Kingsguard and just kind of be shagging him whenever they get the chance?
Right. I was wondering about that too because clearly you can't just write him off, you know. But I guess one thing that I'm kind of afraid of is like a kind of a weird, messy love triangle, you
Right.
know, um, because I can also see that being a possibility as well. Or I say triangle, maybe what do you call it? A quad, a love quad.
Yeah.
Like that'd be that could potentially be really really messy, but there's a lot of room for that to happen, with her husband to be uh it's like the meme chart, there's your crush, and then your betrothed, and then there's your uncle, and and then there's you.
I mean, it's going to be interesting. I mean, she better keep drinking that Plan T, because if she gets pregnant from Damon or Sir Kristen, I'm pretty sure it's going to be very obvious that that's not Laenor Valerian's baby.
Yeah, he's gonna know right off the bat.
Like immediately.
Right.
Like one foot's going to come out. He's going to be like, oh, hell no.
Yeah, off with her head. Like I can't do this. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's gonna be it.
Yeah. Didn't they kill her mom this way? Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Damn, that was rough, man.
That
We'd have
was
to go
cold.
back there. Yeah,
That was cold. That scene was tough.
yeah.
So that being said, man, what would you score this one right now for this episode?
This one was so hard for me to score, just because, again, in so many manners, it was different from all the other episodes we've gotten so far. Um, and that's definitely not a bad thing. In a lot of ways, I think it's a great thing that this episode felt so unique and set apart. But with that being said, I think I'm gonna give it the same score that I gave episode 2, which is I'm gonna give it an 8.5.
Yeah, I would have to like, I think that's pretty interesting. I gave episode 1 a 9. I scored
Mhm.
episode 2, I think I gave it an 8. And
Gotcha.
then I gave 3 a 7.5. So there's definitely been a decline here.
Mhm.
But I'm going to go back up to an 8 on this one. Um because I didn't have any major issues with it like I did with the last episode. Because the last episode, the glaring thing for me, we talk about this a lot. We talk about show don't tell,
Mhm.
and then him fighting the crab feeder off screen just felt like you built this guy up for 3 episodes and then killed him off camera.
Agreed completely. And I'm not even mad at the crab feeder dying 3 episodes in. I'm mad at the
Right.
fact that we don't get to see the resolution.
Yeah.
Because we know that Damon is an excellent swordsman. But the one time that we saw him come up against another excellent swordman was, Sir Kristen Cole.
And he
And
lost.
I, and he lost that fight. So I would have liked to have seen him against somebody who's presented as a formidable foe and win it. I would have liked to have seen that.
Agreed entirely. Yeah. I mean, it's just good booking.
Yeah,
And I believe that violates one of your superhero homie commandments, if I'm not mistaken.
it does, man. It does. I thought that, and not to go back to episode 3 here, but I thought the episode 3, I really loved, like, the wartime stuff. I'm really big on like, the war events. But upon second viewing, actually upon first viewing, you can realize easily it's all rule of cool, and all the actual meat is happening with the A plot. Uh,
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, from like the logistical standpoint, it's like, okay, that's not how a siege works. Like, how are you guys losing food and resources here? Like, there was a lot of things with it that really just didn't make a whole lot of sense. And then not seeing the actual big finale, not seeing the finish, really kind of hurt that episode a bit for me.
Well, to the episode's credit, typically in a siege, the people who are under siege would be the ones who are losing the food and resources. But
Hmm.
in this case, they weren't being supported by the crown, which means that the Valerian army had to sail any of their resources all the way there. And the crab feeder, the reason they were there in the first place is because the crab feeder was attacking their ships.
Yeah.
So
I guess like with Corliss's resources and with it being 3 years, I don't buy it being that long.
I
Especially
agree.
yeah, you have a goddamn dragon.
Right.
The coolest of cool dragons. You can obliterate a lot of those siege weaponry that the crab feeder and this crew had. But
I don't see them not just marching into those tunnels after 6 months
yeah, same.
and clearing them out to the best of their ability. I mean, I don't know. It does seem like a tough thing to me because they are going to have to hide 100% in those caves because you have not one, not two, but three dragons there.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Episode 3 was messy. This one I thought benefited a lot from sticking to the one plot line for the most part.
Yeah.
And not only did we get a lot of character payoffs for everyone, it's like they all kind of came together and everybody's true colors really came out.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, you get to see a side of everybody. And I guess one more thing here that I wanted to point out was, you go back to the conversation between Alicent and Rhaenyra, and you know, I feel like this could be me reaching just a bit here, but I feel like maybe incidentally, Alicent was channeling a bit of her father in the sense that she was saying a lot of things that were true to Rhaenyra, but I think that they were kind of a two-sided phraseology. Like she would say things implying that what you're doing is wrong, and that's not the way that's not the behavior of a princess and blah blah blah. But in reality, she's probably just upset that she's not getting her back blown out by someone who she wants to. Like she has her own kind of ulterior motives that she would like. Meanwhile, she has to lay underneath this literally rotting flesh of a king.
right? Yeah, I, yeah. That's that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I almost said that's a tough pill to swallow, and I was like, oh.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. Well, that's a great note to end an episode on, man. So tell me, before we wrap up here, what do you guys got coming up on Superhero Homies? I'm trying to always plug your podcast because it's an excellent product, but just as a listener, I also want to know. So.
Absolutely, and again, that is always much appreciated. But there will be a massive She-Hulk episode roundup that I'm going to be doing here soon, as well as a celebration for Batman Day. We got to do something for Batman.
Absolutely.
But on top of that, speaking of Batman, going into September, we will be covering the Court of Owls in preparation for the Gotham Knights video game, and also going into the spooky season as well. I was torn between covering two different books. Something is killing the children and Ice Cream Man. I think I'm actually going to lean more towards Ice Cream Man and an anthology horror series. So that'd be a lot of fun as well. Yeah, so we got a lot of fun things coming this way.
And at some point in the next 5 years, they will supposedly ship us our copies of White Sand, so that we can review that.
Yeah, if memory serves correct, like originally that was going to be in October.
No, originally it was going to be in July.
Oh, wow.
And then it got pushed to October, and now they're like, we should be able to start printing them by the end of the year. So,
Eventually they're just going to say, you're going to get them when you get them.
right, yeah, it's like just don't move,
Right.
So don't change your address. If you do forward that mail, and sometime before you die, we'll get this book to you, hopefully. So.
Right. That is technically a window. So yeah.
Yeah, so that's where we're at right now. Looking forward to those She-Hulk reviews. I hope that someone has told Kevin Feige that every time Megan Thee Stallion is on the show, like the show as a whole gets like a whole number bump up.
It does. Yeah.
By the homies. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be like a 13 if she comes back every episode.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I love Tatiana Maslany, but if you just want to make Meg Thee Stallion She-Hulk, I'll give it a 10.
That would be an interesting twist. So.
Well, you can just paint her green, man. No need for CG.
That's true. I mean, you might have to make her a little taller, play some tricks with the camera, but
yeah.
But that being said, man, thank you for joining me once again for yet another episode of an Involved Review and yet another episode of House of the Dragon.
Man, as always, I really love being on here, and thank you for having me on. This is, I think, just an amazing podcast that you have here, and I've loved listening to all the episodes, and hearing other people's perspective as well. I'm like, man, I never thought about that. So yeah, this is a really cool show, man, and as always, I'm glad to be on.
Yeah, and that's why I really like having a variety of guests on. Is like, you get a different perspective on things. I'd say every single time I've had a guest on here, I've had, there's been something where it's like I didn't think of this, so
Yeah,
that's always the intent.
and that is like your big advantage. You get to have a variety of guests. I just have Kevin.
Well, and me.
Fuck you.
That's going in. I'm leaving that in.
Oh, did that pick up?
It did. As a matter of fact, not only did it pick up, not only am I leaving it in the episode, I might clip that out, just that part, and send it to Kevin so he can have it.
Oh, that's excellent.
But with that being said, everybody definitely check out Superhero Homies. And as always, this has been an Involved Review.